Welcome to the Big Dawg Crypto Podcast. This is your number one crypto podcast to hear directly from the movers and shakers, innovators, and disruptors in the cryptocurrency industry. Follow on Twitter for updates and to communicate directly at Woof Big Dawg. That's at Woof Big DAWG. Now, here is your host, the one and only Big Dawg Crypto.
And welcome to the latest episode of the Big Dawg Crypto Podcast. I'm your host, Big Dawg Crypto. On this episode, I have a gentleman that I have followed for quite a while on Twitter, and I am very happy to have him on the program finally. Jesse Olsen, how are you doing?
Good. What's up, Big Dawg Crypto?
Man, you know what? Well, I appreciate you being here. You know, and this is talk about a week to have you on. We got a lot of stuff going on in the markets right now. It looked like, yesterday Bitcoin goes down a couple of percent and people are already calling for 10,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. What are your, because I say this, I have a lot of new people that will tune in and watch the podcast and whatnot. What would you say new people in the space that are watching this and start to get a little concerned when they see a drop 1 or 2%?
1 or 2% in crypto is nothing, right? So
not at all.
You know, if you've been in around crypto or any tech stocks or any it has a lot of volatility in it, asset that you trade, right. You're gonna see some big moves up, but you're also gonna see some big moves down. So it really depends on what time frame on the charts you're looking at, whether you're a swing trader like myself, who's mostly on the daily chart. I do drop down a lower time frame sometimes, but or if you're more of an investor, you're going to be on like a higher time frame, like the weekly or the monthly. So when it drops 1 or 2% and you're an investor, it's probably not that big of a deal. Daily chart, it's not as big. We were planning for this and we were aware of what was happening with Bitcoin. But at 1 or 2%, like on a lower time frame, if you're swing trading like the 1 hour chart, it's a bigger deal because you probably are possibly using leverage and you're just going to take the 1 or 2% and move on. So
when you talk about swing trading, that's a good thing to talk about, because a lot of people will ask questions about, okay, I want to day trade, I want to try and do it. I think it's fair to say, day trading in general is not the easiest thing, especially for new people. But if somebody says, you know what, look, Jesse, I want to do it, I'm bound determined, I've got my capital, I'm going to try and preserve it, right? But what sort of time frames are you a trader on? Are you a 15-minute? Are you an hour? What sort of, like, specifically, somebody's going to go in 8 hours during the day, right, to try and day trade? What kind of candles would you tell them to pay attention to?
Yeah, so I don't day trade. I'm a swing trader. So on the daily chart, so I'm on a little bit higher time frame. So the trade could be anywhere from 20 to 40 days long. Okay. But that's my main business. So if I'm doing, trading with the large account, I'm on the daily chart. But when I do day trade for fun with the smaller accounts, and I'm mostly on like the 1 hour chart, and so it turns into like a 1 or 2 day. So it's still not even like a 15-minute time frame. I have traded on it. I just number one, I don't want to work that hard, and number two, I like to be right more often than not. So right. I like to keep my confidence high with 70 to 80% win rate, not 60% or 55% on the daily doing day trading and stuff like that. Plus, the reason why your stats go down day trading like on a 15-minute or 5-minute is because there's a lot of liquidation games being played by the bigger players. So you're stepping into an arena that's controlled by algorithms, right? So you better have a dialed-in system and be systematic about it and be able to execute, right? So a lot of people can learn a system, but like execution of that system is extremely important. So can you do that day in, day out against algorithms and computers and stuff like that? So
when somebody asks you, hey, look, I'm starting this, look, I want to go like all over the place, I'm willing to risk it all, right? And they want to do leverage, what do you tell somebody on that?
Then this is not for you. If you're going, before you learn and you
really like it,
it's not. It's honest, because what's happening is on YouTube and Twitter and wherever else they're seeing that, ads on TikTok. It's more of a get rich quick scheme. And that's not reality. Reality is you have to treat trading like a business. You have to treat investing like a business. You don't go out starting a business and 90% of them fail within 5 years, right? So you're not going out and typically you're not turning a business into a multi-million-dollar business overnight. It takes years to build up. You have to put systems in place, and any profits that are coming in, you're taking those and then you're probably reinvesting those in. So, if you treat trading like a business, your whole mindset changes. So you have to have, I talked about this in the Discord, and this is what kind of got me wrapped up earlier was someone was talking about patience. Well, it's not just patience for one thing. It's patience in every aspect of trading and investing. And so, whether it's, hey, I just took a loss. Well, have patience for the next setup and not just try to jump back in and get a revenge trade, and then you compound those losses together, right? So, or always feeling the need to be in a trade. So when you always feel that need, you're not waiting for a trade to come to you, you're kind of forcing the trade. And so that's when you start getting in trouble, and most likely you only have one account, right? So if you have one account or one main trading account, I have multiple accounts, but the main trading account, I'm very cautious with, and it doesn't seem like high risk when I jump in because I might have been stalking that trade for 30 or 40 days. So getting back to your question of, what would I tell someone to get in? Well, the first thing I would do is, I would develop a strategy or learn from someone, and then I would back test it. And then what I talk about a lot is, getting into, maybe your first trade is with lunch money, something that you could go to lunch with. You wouldn't even think twice if you lost the money, right? So that's the way I would start. And then if you're eager to jump in with leverage and make the big money, you're probably going to be eager to lose your money, to be honest. So.
Well, you mentioned the word cautious, and I think that's smart because the fact is capital preservation, right, is the name of the game. And unfortunately, some people get in, especially new, and look, and experienced ones too, and they're like, I want to make it all back, and I'm going to do this and whatnot. One of the big things, though, too, in that, looking at your account, and I followed you for quite a while, you also will look at traditional markets, right, and whatnot. So I want to ask something, too, because this seems to be something that there's always been some relation to some extent, of course. But over the past couple of years, right, we've seen more people in the crypto world, and a lot of people came from, right, traditional markets of crypto, but some people just to crypto. But now you're seeing people pay attention to the interest rates, right, and all this kind of stuff, the US dollar and all that. I'll say this because, and this is really this is kind of a generalized question, okay, and it's, I don't know, not the perfect answer, but the best way to answer this. But you look at all the stuff going on in traditional markets. What are one or two things in traditional markets now, and I'm talking specifically 2023, that the first couple of things you want to see in the day, right, before you go to crypto? Like, to give you an idea, right, of which way we may or may not be going.
Yeah, I mean, I started in options trading, which that's probably the last thing you should start in. But I jumped into the fire right away, and this is a lot of the advice comes from me jumping in head first into options, not knowing what I was doing. I learned all the hard lessons, so that's why I talk about the lessons now, so you can try to skip that and not go through a learning curve. But so starting over there, you got to realize, especially on the shorter time frames, that there is manipulation going on because of the high leverage, right? So. Sure. One of the things I'm looking at is, I'll take a look at the NASDAQ, right? Whether it's, highly correlated to crypto or it's not, there are some leading indicators, or sometimes Bitcoin will be the leading indicator. So when I'm crossing back and forth between crypto and stocks, I'm looking at both the DXY, the dollar, right? And then the VIX. So I look at the VIX too. So if volatility is going to be spiking up on the VIX, it traditionally means that risk off for S&P 500, which could be risk off for the NASDAQ, which could be risk off for Bitcoin. Like, for me, Bitcoin is a technology, right? So I kind of put in the bucket of a technology stock. obviously everyone's got their viewpoints on it, and we all are into Bitcoin and stuff like that. But as far from a trading standpoint, I kind of think of it as a more of a tech stock, and watch the volatility based off of that. Because some of these tech stocks have lower market caps, so they move even faster than Bitcoin. If you can imagine that, almost similar to like in altcoins. So I do bounce back and forth between you can't see it on my chart, but on my watch list, I have the NASDAQ and stuff like that. And one of the reasons why I think it's become, people talk about like the correlation stuff. My thought is, futures were introduced in 2017 for Bitcoin. And ever since futures were introduced, some of those players that came over from maybe the NASDAQ futures and stuff like that went into Bitcoin. So I think it's, in my personal opinion, it's probably more correlated because of that. So the more that, like if there's ETFs or trusts set up or futures, the more that happens, I think it'll possibly become more correlated to the markets, not less.
Right. Which is interesting because you remember for the longest time, we'd hear that Bitcoin is a non-correlated asset. And now, no, especially with tech stocks. Now, one of the things somebody told me, we're talking and said, I was sitting having coffee a while back and had said, which has been heard before, of course, is that Bitcoin tends to move and then tech stocks tend to follow. Do you agree with that? Would you say yes or no? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, and specifically now, right? Because whether it was 2 or 3 years ago, I mean, in 2023, do you find that to be the case?
Well, one of the number one thing that I always talk about with the correlation is, first and foremost, trade the chart that you're trading, right? That's number one. So if you're going to be trading Bitcoin or investing in Bitcoin, stare at that chart first, right? Right. Because you have more than enough clues just to study the Bitcoin chart over and over again and kind of know it inside and out. Right. But I do flip back and forth between Bitcoin and actually even Ethereum, right? So some of the times where there's a correction and Bitcoin happened first, and then Ethereum followed after that. So when that happened, I went in and heavily shorted Ethereum in 2021 after Bitcoin was already breaking down, and I closed out of my long positions at like 61,000. And then I noticed that Ethereum was lagging behind, right? So I'm always looking for like a possible canary in the coal mine, whether it's a leading or a lagging indicator. And so I did a research for like a side-by-side comparison with Bitcoin and Ethereum for like 2 days. And I went back to like 2020, like early 2021, and Bitcoin broke down first, then it was Ethereum. And so I shorted Ethereum at like 43.84 was the number, when a lot of the influencers out there were still ultra bullish and saying it was breaking out. I had done the research and looked like it was a fake out and putting in a lower high. So I shorted that with 10x leverage. So you have to have enough confidence in staring at the charts. And then on the rally for Ethereum, at 34.08, people thought the market, it was back on, and then we shorted that in the Discord again. So, but the point is, the Bitcoin led the way in that one, and sometimes Ethereum will lead the way on the breakout. And sometimes you can see that on, like you said, the tech stocks and NASDAQ and stuff like that. But Ethereum and Bitcoin are probably like the closest ones, I think.
Yeah. And how many years ballpark have you been in the space?
Crypto only like early 2020. So not even that.
But you've been in finance though for how many? I mean, you've been in options for how many years? Ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, like 5 to 10 years, but like probably like crazy obsessive at least 3.5.
Okay, but I just, the reason I want to ask is I want to go back to when you first heard about Bitcoin, but because I know some people like just, haven't done this long enough in podcasts, somebody's going to say, wait, he said earlier about being careful with leverage. He used leverage. Okay, a little commentary on my part. First off, it was fall of 2021 where everything was blowing and going. You've been in the space years, right? You've also been in finance. So I would say this, if like Jess, right, you've been in, then that's one thing. And I don't do leverage, but I got to agree with you. That was pretty smart to do that in the fall of 2021. But if anybody says, wait a second. For new people, there's a big difference, right? If you're, and I was specifically earlier, my question was, if you're like a week into the space, should you use leverage type thing? So I want to qualify that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So,
yeah. And that's what I mentioned earlier was that, like, you know, your question was, well, what should someone do, you know, if they want to jump in and start making money with leverage? I said, don't do it, right? That was the first thing that I said. So I jumped into options head first in the beginning, and you know, that's where I learned a lot of mistakes, right? So
but you know what?
And options are leverage, right? So if you're looking at crypto, you know, jumping in with leverage, you know, you're probably going to your account's probably going to lose very quickly. So.
But you just said something that to me is very smart, and you hear this from a lot of people that are traders that have been here for a while, or have been in any sort of space for a while, is that you learn through mistakes. These were, I'm guessing, expensive mistakes, right? I mean, it's called a very expensive education. So and like I said, a lot of, you know, I'm thankful to have a lot of people that have been in the space for a while, but I get a lot of new people that will message me and say, hey, I learned something, I appreciate it, whatnot. And I just think it's important for people to realize that you're going to learn, right? As a new trader, you're going to have mistakes, right? And you're going to lose some money on the first time. And just, to me, it's just so important to let people know that, especially, you know, people that are new.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
Yeah.
Just like starting a new business, it takes money to get started, right? And you're not profitable from day one typically, right? So,
right.
So just try to keep that mindset. You know, the lure is that everyone's going to get rich quick, right? And so that's where everyone falls into the trap, because they see other people, you know, having huge gains, or maybe they got lucky with, like an altcoin. You know, what was the latest one, Bald or whatever?
Oh, gee, the one from this weekend, right? Yeah.
So it pumped up, you know, crazy amounts. People talk about the millions, but then, you know, people talk about getting rug pulled after that. So,
well, I was going to say, you hear the stories about I made so much, but you don't always hear the ones that lost it all or had it on paper and, you know, never got to see it.
Oh yeah, you definitely don't hear about the losses too often.
No.
So
people don't want to talk about those. So let me ask you, so Market Sniper Pro, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I was swing trading, and I was able to quit real estate and mortgage after 17 years in early 2021 when interest rates were still 3%. So it was the best it's ever been, right? Yeah. So went out on top, but I had to, before I allowed myself to do that, I had to be able to make more swing trading than what my business was.
Right.
And so I was able to do that. And then I was bored. So I took to Twitter and started posting my charts. And after about 8 to 9 months, people kept pushing me to teach them. And I was like, no, I don't want another job, right? I just want to focus on my swing trading. And so they kept pushing me. So I started a newsletter. Then they're like, just, teach me live coaching. I'm like, no, I don't want to. And then finally, after, March 2022, I finally caved and then said, okay, I'll teach you how to do it. So then I started recording sessions like this, but live coaching. And so then, I had to build a Discord. I recorded over 60 hours of coaching, me and 4 or 5 other guys. And I've only done that live coaching once, but I covered everything that I thought I needed to cover from A to Z. And then it kind of evolved into that. And hearing feedback from people's struggles or what worked or what didn't work, I reinvested a lot of that money back into algorithms to help them make it easier visually. Now we have bot alert systems. We haven't released it yet because it's still being built, but I'm building a dashboard behind the scenes, but I haven't made any public announcements on it. So basically everyone's money, that they put into learn to do it themselves, I've reinvested it back into make it easier for them. So that's basically what Market Sniper is. So it's an online community of just trying to build out snipers so they can do this on their own. So if one day I walk away, you don't need me. You can do this on your own and be your own person.
Nice. And I want to bring that up because anytime somebody's bringing content to the space, to me, that's very important. So that's why I want to ask you about that. One of the things you mentioned about interest rates, and so I noticed the other day you had retweeted, I believe, TradingView talking about the interest rates and where they are. Friend of mine the other day who was ready to actually buy a house, has the money to do it, would like to do a loan, and said, you know what, it makes more sense for me to rent right now till the rates come down next year. And that was to hear that was kind of sobering, like, wow, like really is what we're looking at when we look at interest rates right now. I've never actually put this together as far as even asked this of any guest, but because of the fact that you've got that experience, looking at interest rates, do you feel like the interest rates when it comes to crypto affect them? And once again, a wide-ranging question, but let's just say we have rate cuts next year, the year after. What sort of correlation, if any, would you draw to the crypto market with interest rates?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not a macro expert. Like I try to stay in my lane, but my own personal view is, if the rates continue to be higher, I think it impacts real estate, right? If the interest rates are higher for lending purposes, whether it's commercial or personal, it affects people going out and expanding their business, right?
Right.
It affects speculation. So could it affect the traditional markets? Could it affect crypto? Yeah, definitely. Right. So it's something to keep an eye on. And I don't think the halving is the only thing that matters, right? I think it helps play a part, but it also depends on what type of arena we're playing in. So we'll see what happens, because the rates were always so low when we got these huge moves to the upside. And then the other side of the coin is, some macro experts, just say it doesn't even matter because the liquidity out there. Well, part of the liquidity is people borrow money and they risk that borrowed money. So if there's no future borrowed money, where's that extra liquidity coming from? So if you kind of look back, like, tied into crypto, like, what was it, 3 Arrows and all them, they were like highly leveraged with loans, right? So they had loans, and then they had leverage with that money that was loaned. And so when the prices didn't work out in their favor, they got liquidated, and those loans didn't get repaid. So I think it does affect it. I think it, we'll see what happens. And there's a lot of theories out there that, hey, they'll break the system if they don't put the rates back down. So maybe they will lower the rates. But as of right now, just follow the trend. Like, I look at the 10-year treasury and all that stuff, and I chart it. So I kind of I try to keep my own bias out and just really stare at the charts. And if the charts are trending up or they're trending down, that's what I stay hyper focused on. So
that makes sense. And one other thing on Bitcoin, do you remember where you were when you first heard about Bitcoin? Like the first time somebody told you about it, or you read about it, or what you were doing? Yeah,
I mean, I don't remember like the first time I heard about it, but I do remember the first time someone trying to orange pill me. And that was it was one of my fellow loan officers in 2017 that they were trying to orange pill me on Bitcoin. I do remember that. And shout out to Aaron. He probably never watched this, but Aaron was orange pilling me in 2017.
Yeah.
Okay. But I'm not like very good at multitasking multiple types of businesses and stuff. So when I was fully in, building the mortgage and real estate business and having loan officers on the team, like I was just fully hyper focused on that. So when I kind of stepped out of that to where I just focused on myself for a real estate mortgage, and then kind of transitioned out of that, once I taught myself a new skill, then I became more and more interested in it for sure. But
nice.
How about you?
Actually, it was 2017. I think the first time, and I don't think anybody's ever asked that. I asked all my guests that question because I'm always interested, because I have everybody, from all over crypto Twitter and different parts of finance. And I'm generally like, when did you first hear about it? But no one's ever asked me that. It was actually 2015. I remember seeing a special on CNN where it might have been Anderson Cooper. Somebody tried to go through New York and try and live off of Bitcoin. I thought it was kind of fascinating. But as far as first really paying attention to it, I think it was a social media post that I saw. It was in June of 17, and somebody was talking about, I'm getting Bitcoin for financial freedom and this and that. And it was just the fascination of what it was, and also too the fact that this was a way to be able to send something from A to B without anybody telling you no or whatnot, as a peer-to-peer currency and just what it represents. But yeah, about summer of 17, so about 6 years ago. But it's interesting,
Yeah, it is interesting. And what else is interesting is, I pulled up like this, I posted this a while back, so I can't remember exactly, but the Google search, right? So Google search for Bitcoin, I think peaked in 2017. So, and then altcoins peaked after that, crypto in general. And then recently it's been AI Google search, like Google search is like AI is like been the number one. So I don't know if it's peaked or not, but it's interesting that, we heard about in 2017, and that was actually the peak of Google search. Not sure if that means anything. I still read it based on the chart, but.
Yeah, but it's interesting because you remember in 17, it peaked out around 17,000 in December 17. And then, of course, you had people that bought it at 17. Oh, my gosh, it's never coming back. And, of course, it did. But then dropped to 6 or whatever it was. But then in 2021, you looked at now in both of these cases, you're talking December of 17 after the halving in 16, and you're talking November of 21, right? With the 69 4 something, whatever it was. Do you feel like, because that kind of leaves me kind of that last question about the halving and afterwards, it's always fun to speculate, right? Now, this is more of I don't know, maybe from a TA point of view, but from even the fundamental analysis, halving coming up, April of next year. Do you think we see an ATH? And if so, would you want to speculate a time frame and a ballpark all-time high?
Yeah, so the all-time high, if it's going to follow the halving cycles, because I have studied it from a chart standpoint, very, very deeply back in early 2021. I was doing, especially when it was correcting like 55%. I was studying it a lot, and it was like June 2021. I studied it even more, like the whole future Bitcoin, pullback of 77% or the bear market. And so if you look at it from a halving standpoint and, assuming that everything else is the same, whether it's, the markets and, the economy and all that stuff, all being the same, then, I don't think the next bull run happens till after the halving. So, the all-time high would be in 2025, right? So it'd be similar to 2021. And then similar to 2017. So, they say it's a 4-year cycle. It's probably more like a 3.5, 4-year cycle. I don't think it's exactly 4 years, but, everything else has to remain the same too. So I don't think it's just the halving, I think it plays a big part because a lot of people think it plays a big part. So
psychologically,
so it becomes what it is, right? So, if everyone thinks it is something, then it is something. So, and we're looking at the charts, if it were to hit certain key things that it hit in the past, doesn't mean it will. Then, saying it's going to hit $1 million, I don't think it's going to do that because it takes a lot of capital to come in for that.
Yeah.
And now you've introduced, futures and possibly ETFs and stuff like that. There could be more manipulation. Like, a lot of people think that Bitcoin and silver and gold, could be manipulated and should be a lot higher than it is. Just all those things. Maybe it reaches like 145, 150 based off of like what targets it's hit in the past. But there's just so many
wild cards. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
But if I was a pure halving guy, and if I was just a pure, what targets have hit in the past, it'd be like that 145, 150 area.
That's and I think that's kind of the range that I'm looking at it. And I'm not one of those that says, like, personally, and it's just my opinion. Like, it's not even from any analysis technically, but I don't necessarily see the 300 or 400 or 500 people are saying. I think kind of like in that 120, 150 somewhere, and then jumping ahead, imagine somebody buys it in the fall of 2025 at 120, right? Then it crashes down to 60. Oh my gosh, what a ripoff! And you repeat the cycle, right? So it tends to happen.
I hope we get another cycle like that. That would it would change a lot of people's lives. Hopefully for the good, right? Not for the bad. You don't buy it at 120 and 60 again. So hopefully there's going to be enough education out there to help a lot of people out there because I got into it late, I guess, because I wasn't buying at 2017. But coming to the next cycle, if we get another full cycle, then it seems like I'll I'm pretty new, early in the game still. So it'd be nice to try to help everyone sell at the top this time versus not selling at the top, because a lot of people came in learned in 2022 like how to trade, and they're like, oh, I wish I would have known this 2021. And I'm like, well, yeah, I put out videos of how to sell the top and all that stuff way before I had a Discord. It was free on Twitter and all that stuff, a parabolic trendline breakdown, very simple concept to think about. But at the end of the day, you sell it at 61,000, and then I bought back in with leverage at 16,800. So
nice.
Waiting for a higher probability reversals, and not trying to pick the bottom wick, right, or the top wick. I try. My goal is to capture 80 to 90% of the move. 61,000 was the top minus 12%, and the video that I had put out was to try to catch the top minus 10 to 13%. So I actually hit my goal, and then the bottom was 5 to 6% of the bottom. So I hit that goal too. So you got to have a plan, and you got to try to execute the plan to the best of your ability.
I would say for people that wish they had sold near 61, that's close enough. You know what I mean? Like that's within that range. That nobody, in hindsight, you can't complain about that. That's phenomenal.
I was a little mad at myself, to be honest, because in October I was calling out possible future bearish divergence. In November I called out. It's all on Twitter. I called out bearish divergence in November, and I still didn't take, because one thing is, I harp on, for a lot, is to try to stay neutral and try not to get too bullish or too bearish, right? And at that moment, looking back, and the reason why I sold at 61,000 is because I got too bullish. So I got too caught up in, it's going over 100,000, all that stuff. I got too hyped up. Luckily, I fell back on my, parachute plan, my, breakdown of parabolic trend line. And so it got me out of 61,000. But whatever I was calling out in Twitter about the bearish divergence, I wasn't fully listening to even my own self. So when I spotted bullish divergence at the bottom, I was much more dialed in. And so I got within that 5 to 6%, not the 10 to 13. So I'm always trying to, stay neutral and listen to my own charts and my own advice, right, at the end of the day. So
nice. Well, that's why I'm going to tell you at the very end, I want to ask people how to find you, how to follow you. But let me ask you a couple of personal questions. When you're not working, I know you work a lot. What sort of hobbies do you like to do? What sort of stuff do you do for fun?
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you some things outside of like charts and stuff. But charting is, I'm obsessed over it because I love it, right? So I'm always doing that. But I like to get outside. So me and the wife like to go for hikes. We took, I flew in my cousin's kids over the weekend. He had gotten sick, with pneumonia, so he couldn't make it out. So I didn't want his kids to, they were supposed to go to Disneyland for the first time. So I'm like, I'll fly him out. So I flew him out. We took him to Disneyland Friday. Saturday, we took him to the beach. So I love beach. We played, touch and bocce ball on the beach, right? Took him into the ocean. He's 11, and he's never really been around the ocean. So, I took him in. He was nervous. He was scared. So trying to get outside, teach him, not to be afraid of the ocean, stay calm, be patient, right? Don't get too worked up on it. You got to stay calm in those situations. So took him that. Trying to get back into my old hobby when I was a kid was golf. Trying to get back into more of that. So last couple months I've been trying to play golf like once a week. Make myself get out of the office and get outside for 45 hours and get off the charts for a bit. But
it's important.
And my number one thing is spending time with family. So I'm going to see family, Arizona, Minnesota. I've got trips coming up. So wife always gives me crap. We don't go on enough 5 to 7 day vacations because all my vacations are based around family. So I'm always taking 3 to 5 day trips to go see them. family and stuff, because to me that's the most important. So,
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think.
What do you got going on?
Well, I was going to say, we're good. I mean, I'll tell you, but I'll tell you, I mean, to me, that's so important because people like this is a 24/7 thing, right? Like if you wanted to, or if you didn't want to, you could never leave. I mean, it's like somebody asked me the other day, somebody said, well, so you really don't get a break. I said, not really. I said, you have to make yourself take a break because with crypto in particular, it's a 24/7 thing, right? It never, ever stops. Yeah. So when you step away and it's not like it's pausing, it's not going away, it'll still be there. But I mean, I like to travel. I'm big on traveling too. One of the things too, and I'm sure you know too, even when you travel and you're trying to get away, you're still checking your phone just because you check Twitter and whatnot. And it's kind of, I think some people say, well, I want to go on an island for like a week and not touch my phone. Well, it sounds good, but I don't know that anybody can really do that. You know what I mean? Like after the first day, you'd be like, oh, I got to check it and see what sort of drama's going on, whatever. But
we did pretty good on our honeymoon. That was 7 days in Belize, and we did pretty good. She works too, so for her, we agreed that we would check, for like 1 hour a day. But then we got so caught up in exploring the jungle and then going snorkeling stuff that ended up being a lot less than an hour a day. But we did check in, and we had an agreement going in. We stuck to that agreement, but
that's cool.
So if you're out snorkeling, it's hard to check your phone.
It's hard to check your phone. Then wait, did you in Belize? Did you get a chance to go to the Blue Hole?
So we didn't go there because I feel like you got to be scuba diving for that, and we're not scuba divers to be ready for that. And I didn't want to just fly over it. I could just see that online. So we jumped in and went snorkeling and did some spearfishing and actually ate what we caught. And then we did a tour with we accidentally swam with a hammerhead.
Wow. Nice.
A manatee and stuff like that. So.
Nice. Well, that brings me to my final question, because I always like to ask too, if a plane's picking you up, you and the wife, and y'all going anywhere in the world for the weekend, where would you go? Like a country that you haven't been to, but you've always wanted to go?
She wants to take me to Costa Rica because I've never been, and she loves it. And I'm always, I guess I'm like, I find a place and I just want to go back. So I keep telling her I want to go back to Belize, and she's like, no, we got to go try somewhere new. But I loved Belize because everyone was so nice, and actually. I kept making jokes. I'm like, they speak proper English. Yeah. They speak better English than I do. So I'm like, I loved it there, and there's some cool history and stuff. But I think our next one would probably be Costa Rica because she wants to take me there, and she really likes it there. So
I had a chance to go there in fall of 2021. Loved it. It was beautiful. The people were so nice. Like anytime you go to a country, I find overall people are friendly. But Costa Ricans, they were so generally happy to have people there because tourism's so big, and of course the COVID things were shut down, and tourism was their main business, and they loved it. But I tell you what we're going to do. I'm going to inspire you. You inspire me, because my dad loved Belize. Been there a couple of times. I've never gone, so I'm gonna go to Belize to finally check it out. You need to go to Costa Rica. Take her up on that. I promise you won't be let down.
Yeah, definitely. So, and Belize is probably a closer trip for you too. I think you're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah. Well, the South, the Gulf South. Yeah, it's not too far at all. Yeah, in fact, I wanted to see. Because he liked to scuba dive, and I know they have the Blue Hole and all that. I was like, it looks really cool, but he loved it. He said it was great. So, what you're saying is backing that up. I definitely want to check it out.
Yeah, I would check out just to break things up. We started in the jungle for 3 days and stayed at a resort there and explored there, and then went to the island after that for 4 days. I think breaking it up like that was just the perfect combination because you get to see everything, right? So a lot of things to do there. Costa Rica, she's been pushing me to go there for a while. So
it's amazing.
I'll have to take your advice on that and say it's all about you and not her.
Appreciate it. Okay, so Jesse, you got to tell me, where do people find you on Twitter? What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, you just find me at Jesse Olsen, JESSEOLSON. You can just find me there, and I'm always on there pretty much every day. So.
Cool. All right. Well, Jesse, I appreciate you taking the time to come on the latest episode of the Big Dawg Crypto Podcast. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had fun. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Big Dawg Crypto Podcast. Follow on Twitter at WoofBigDawg. Woof, Big DAWG. And run faster than the competition. Woof, woof.